And we're live.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dallas. Could you bring my presentation up? Thank you so much. Good evening and welcome to the virtual neighborhood meeting for the Village at Terry Lakes project. Next slide, please. This is our meeting agenda. I will do some brief introductions. I'm Kristen Cody, a senior planner for the city of Longmont. Also on the city side, we have with us Dallas Stiles, who is our live stream digital specialist. On the applicant team, we have Jessica Greenow, Tasha Bolivar, Scott Brown, all from Galloway, and Brian Friel, who's with Built by Empire. So this evening, I will give a brief presentation, which will go over, the meeting overview and format. We'll talk a little bit about project and process overview. The applicant will then do a presentation, and then we'll move on to public comments and questions. Next slide, please. So a little virtual housekeeping before we start. Comments and questions will be taken after the presentation. So after those presentations are finished, Dallas will then explain to us how we will be making our comments, and we'll take a 5-minute break, giving people an opportunity to call in. If you do call in, please mute your live stream when you're speaking to avoid feedback. Next slide, please. So this is a project overview. We are looking at approximately 153.45 acre property that is located in northern Longmont on the north side of Highway 66, east of 95th Street. The proposal is for annexation of a property that will then be developed with a mixed use plan, which would include some residential, commercial, and a park. Next slide, please. So a little bit of process overview. We are right now at our very first step in the process, which is our neighborhood meeting. Once this step is complete, the applicant team can then choose to submit formal applications to the city. These will include an application for annexation of the easterly property, a concept plan amendment for the westerly property, and the establishment of concept plan for the easterly property and rezoning. These sort of applications require public hearings, which first go to the planning commission, who then gives their recommendation to city council, who makes a final decision. These applications all do require notice to be sent to neighboring properties, as well as the site posted with signage. Next slide, please. Additional steps in the development process will include a preliminary plat of the site, a site plan, public improvement plans, and a final plat. Next slide, please. We will now move on to our applicant presentation.
Hi, good evening. Yes, Brian Friel with the Empire Group. We're the developer. Empire is a real estate development company formed over 40 years ago, located out of Scottsdale, Arizona. As mentioned, we have some of our design and entitlement team from Galloway on as well. Next slide, please, Dallas. Well, I guess that was that slide. You can go to the next slide. Apologies. As Kristen, pretty well laid out, we're at a very early stage in what we're looking to do here. We're at pre-annexation. So just by default, this is a very conceptual concept plan that we have laid out for this project. And however, we do feel that it is consistent with the spirit of the comprehensive plan, as well as the framework master plan that this particular property is going to be subject to. And we've gone through a couple iterative processes with the city to develop a general concept plan. And like I said, we feel this is consistent with those those guiding principles that this property is going to be subject to. As staff mentioned, there's a variety of uses, as you can see on here. From commercial, we have some single family build-to-rent cottage homes for a portion of the site, traditional multifamily, some townhouse product, as well as some civic uses by way of an elementary school and a park. Further, there are a number of collector roads that would be developed and deeded over to the city. And these are generally consistent with the city's thoroughfare plan, what we have laid out on the concept plan here as well. And lastly, there's a fairly large chunk of the property held open for detention. It's about 20 plus acres for detention to handle all the drainage for this site. And I think in combination with the regional detention that the city has installed just north of this property, I think these two in conjunction with each other will operate to basically manage a lot of regional detention issues as well as any water issues that might be of a concern as it relates to Highway 66 and properties to the south of our development. Again, as Kristen mentioned, we're very early. There's many other steps that we need to go through that are going to be subject to city staff, planning and zoning, and council scrutiny. So that's the overview of the project, and we'll open it up to any questions anyone may have.
Thank you so much. We'll just go over a few ground rules for public comment. Each speaker is given 3 minutes to state their questions or concerns. When you are speaking, please state your name and where you live. Please keep questions and comments related to this current proposal. Try to be additive and not repetitive with your comments. And as always, be civil and respectful to everyone in the meeting. All right, next slide, please. So I will turn it over to Dallas, who can explain how we call in and give comments.
Sure thing. So now it is time to call in. That means if you have a question or comment, you're going to dial 1-888-788-0099. Once that happens, you're going to enter the meeting ID 811-1368-6582. You're going to mute your live stream when you get in. It'll be a bit of a pause while we're going through our 5-minute break here. I'll then call on you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. And once that happens, you'll be able to hit *6 to unmute on your device, and you can come on for 3 minutes and ask your questions or comments. Thanks. And with that, we're going to take our 5-minute break. Feel free to call in now. Okay, callers, we have just about 5 minutes. Our 5 minutes is up. We do have some callers in the chat. I did see that somebody just dropped out, so I'll leave the slide up for a little bit longer if that caller wants to try and call back in. Okay, great. I see it there. Perfect. Great. So we do have a few callers tonight. Callers, again, if you are listening to me through your device, make sure you mute your live stream now, because otherwise you're going to hear a feedback loop in just a second. With that, I'm going to drop our slide here, and we'll start taking some callers. Okay, so let's begin with caller 107. Remember, this is the last 3 digits of your phone number. Caller 107, please hit *6 on your device to unmute. Caller with the last 3 digits of their phone number, 107. If you could please hit *6 on your device to unmute. Okay, we're going to move on, but we'll come back to caller 107. Just make sure again that you're listening to me through your device and not through your live stream, because that is going to have a little bit of an input delay. We're going to move on to our next caller, caller with the last 3 digits, 223. Caller 223, if you'd hit *6 on your device to please unmute.
Hi.
Hello.
My name is Trent. My name is Trent Turner. I live on Peterson Place, and I was curious to know about when the traffic change assessments and mitigation would take place. That's already a pretty busy and dangerous corner. I'm not sure who would answer that.
Caller 223, do you have a series of questions? We just don't want to truncate your time by responding to one.
No, that was it. Just I'm very interested in how the traffic is going to be managed at that central intersection to the development.
Gotcha. Thank you. We're right now, because we have a bunch of callers. We're having our team, we're going to write those down. If you just want to hang on for a bit, I have that you didn't use all your time. You can follow up with a question after we go through everybody, and you should be able to follow up at the end by hitting *9. Thank you. We're going to go on to our...
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. We're going to go on to our next caller. This is caller with the last 3 digits of the number 601. Caller 601. If you would please hit *6 to unmute.
Well, I'm unmuted.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Do you mind saying your name and address for the record, please?
Absolutely. Dale Eaton, 12911 Hillcrest Drive.
Thank you, Dale. And you've got 3 minutes.
Well, my only big concern is we have a beautiful view all the way to Lyons, basically from our house on Hillcrest. And I'm seeing multifamily between us and those beautiful mountains. I want to know how tall these buildings are and what can I expect.
Sure thing. Thanks, Dale. Again, we're going to just go through all our questions from the people on the list. If you have more, again, you can hit *9 to follow up afterwards. I've got that you still have plenty of time left, unless you have more questions that you want to ask now.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Much appreciated. All right, we are going to go down to caller with the last 3 digits of their number, caller 767. Caller 767, if you would please hit *6 on your device to unmute.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, this is Brian Zerdy. I'm on Sunrise Drive, and I kind of have a concern too about the traffic. Are you going to put up a traffic light at Francis? Are you going to extend or add more lanes to 66? Is there a way to put up any kind of sound barrier walls? Because there's already cement trucks and everything going past there. So yes, most of my concern is over the traffic.
Great. Thanks, Brian. I see we lost one of our callers. If that was you, I think it was our original caller 107. If you want to call back in, you should have the option. If you just hit that same number that you had on your phone a second ago, the meeting is unlocked. Otherwise, we have one more new caller. This is call-in user 1. I'm assuming you're on Zoom, call-in user 1, but I just asked you to unmute if you would like to jump on and give your comments. Hey there.
Yeah, hello. My name is Philip Duclos, and I live in Willis Heights. So the preliminary layout for the project, I have both a concern and a question. The concern is that the preliminary layout for the design here shows what appear to be single-family houses in the the northeast corner of the property. That abuts the tiny little park that is Willis Heights Park, Boulder County open space. It would be nice if the developers and the city were able to make better use of that parkland by moving the park that you guys have proposed to be adjacent or to allow a corridor from that Willis Heights Park. That's my concern. My question is, about the traffic. So Francis and 66 is a deadly intersection. There have been numerous fatalities there. And, your design, the map you sent out in the meeting notice shows the church as Sunshine Daycare and Preschool. It's that comes off Google Maps. That's sorely inaccurate. Lifebridge Church is a well, the proper term is ginormous church with a tremendous amount of traffic on Sundays for the several services they have there. And the Boulder County Sheriff provides traffic control occasionally, such as bigger seasonal events like Easter that's coming up here. So getting traffic in and out of your subdivision is pretty much going to require a traffic signal. Now, I'm not really a fan of traffic signals, except when they save lives, and that would certainly, I think, be the case with Francis and 66. Someone else asked about widening 66, which is a wonderful idea, but I'm not sure that's in the cards. Anyway, I'd sure like to hear what you plan to do to mitigate traffic, because it's awfully bad, and Francis is a deadly intersection. Thank you.
Thanks, Philip. And with that, so that is our last caller. Kristen and team, would anyone like to address some of those comments and questions?
I can talk a little bit about the traffic requirements that it seems like there were a lot of concerns in regards to. So as I stated earlier, this is the very beginning step of the process. So we would look towards annexation, concept plans, rezoning, and then preliminary plat and site plan. The bulk of the most significant portion of the traffic studies will be submitted during the site plan review and the plat review. That will then tell us, based on reviews by transportation and engineering and traffic counts, what needs improvement or upgrading in that area for safety purposes and to handle the flow of traffic. And those would be requirements set forth in their public improvement plans to make the development a viable product. We also, with these application types, because that is a state highway, so CDOT has a lot of control in regards to it. CDOT will be a referral partner for all these applications. So we will work closely with CDOT in the course of, understanding what improvements need to be made as far as turn lanes, traffic signals, etc. And I think I'll turn it over to the development team to talk a little bit about potential height and maybe talk about any traffic mitigation ideas that they have had this early on in the process. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kristen. I'll chime in with a couple things. Obviously, Jessica and team, if you have anything to add, please do. But as it relates to the traffic signal and the traffic question and concern, very valid concern. We've actually had a couple conversations with CDOT regarding the Highway 66, widening and some of the improvements on 66. And I think our development will help pave the way for some of those improvements, which includes a traffic signal at Francis. That is the plan in what CDOT has for that particular intersection. And I think, as many callers pointed out, I think it's needed, especially with our development, if this goes through. So I don't want to speak too out of turn, but I think some of the reasons the Highway 66 widening and some of these improvements haven't happened is because of some of sort of lingering concerns about overtopping on 66 and some of the drainage concerns. And the problem is the county doesn't own property sufficient to provide, makeup storage to alleviate that concern. If we develop this, we will. So we will create that storage, we will create that detention that will alleviate the concerns if there was a major rain on Highway 66, that I think would open the floodgates for an expansion of 66, get the traffic light installed, and whatever other mitigation measures, as Kristen pointed out, there'll be a traffic study, and there may be other mitigation measures that the city would deem appropriate that we would have to comply with. So I just wanted to comment a little bit on that. I think our development, while obviously it will bring more residents and some traffic to the area, I think will also bring improvements that will more than make up for that. And as far as height goes, our project is sort of beholden to the Highway 66 mixed-use corridor framework master plan, and there are a couple of sub areas within that plan that our project covers, and those have a variety of height limits. Some of them don't have height limits. As Kristen could probably elaborate more, but I think it's necessarily somewhat of a flexible document, but it does reference some height limits. I think some of them are limited to 2-story. I think there's a sub area that's limited to 30 feet. And I believe one of them is 55 feet. So there are a couple of different allowable heights. As far as what we would plan to do, that's still to be determined. I think we're a little too early in the process. I mean, we would either partner with some other developers to pick up some of these other parcels. We'll self-develop the single family build to rent product. Will obviously self-develop the infrastructure and the roads. So some of that stuff is obviously a little bit to be determined as to who we can partner with or who these property might be sold to, as to how the height and the layout and these things would ultimately evolve. So that's a quick answer to that.
Great, and we do have a follow-up question. Caller 223, you can unmute to ask that follow-up question.
Thank you. A couple of questions. What is the range of population that you expect to go in? I understand that there's not a completed plat yet that says exactly how many multifamily and how many single family. So I'm curious as to what the expected range of population will be in that area. Is it possible to throw that map back up? Because it looked like, as I was listening to some of the other folks speak, that basically there's just one way in and one way out to 66. There may have been something to the west, but I couldn't tell. And then finally, I don't understand what well, I've never heard the expression build to rent before. And does that mean that that entire property will be dwellings that are not owned by the inhabitants? That entire property will be rentals only?
Yeah, I
So I
can.
think that's my two questions, or maybe three. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. I'll take the last one first, which is the build to rent, because that would be our product, and that is there's a lot of different terms for this type of product, and you may or may not have seen any of these around, and they're being developed in a lot of places in Colorado, Texas, Arizona. But you are correct. These would all be rental products. It's we've termed it horizontal apartments. So it's run and it is developed and it is managed and it is maintained in the same manner that a traditional multifamily would be maintained, in the sense that it would have a single owner, it would have property managed, it would have on-site leasing, on-site property maintenance staff, it would have a clubhouse, a pool, and some of its own amenity spaces, a dog park, and things like that. But they are small, individual, freestanding cottage-style homes. So they have, their own front yard, their own backyard. So it's a sort of a hybrid housing concept, sort of a hybrid between a single-family experience and a rental experience. We get actually it's a very very good renter base that we attract to that type of product. So I can talk all day about that. I don't want to go on too much about that, but I'm happy to answer any more questions on that. And as far as how much would be built in this development, and maybe Kristen, you could help me on this too, but I believe there is, within that framework master plan, that there is a goal to reach 18 dwelling units per acre. That might be a minimum actually within that. That's my recollection. So, I mean, if you do the math on that, you can kind of come up with at least number of dwelling units. Our build to rent product would be less than that, but Kristen, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's a floor that this particular zoning area is calling for, as far as
You're very correct, Brian. In the concept plan on the easterly property, it denotes 18 to 25 units per acre. So that would be what is in place currently. I could also address really quickly the access on 266 component. CDOT has an access plan set forth for Highway 66, which denotes where allowed accesses will be. On this project, that is the only allowed access point from Highway 66, and there's no forward motion to amend that access plan, so that is why the development is proceeding with one access onto Highway 66.
I mean, and I think the extension of the collectors, there's a couple of east-west collectors that we will be building our portion of, and obviously the idea would be those would continue as development of property to our west, comes into place. And I think that east-west collector would connect to Spencer Street to the west. So, that property traffic from this overall development will ultimately flow, I think, to different areas of 66 when the east-west collector is connected.
Great. Thanks, Brian. We are going to go to 767, which is, I believe, also Brian. 767, if you want to unmute for your follow-up questions.
Yes, I have three follow-up questions. One, how much does the population density have to be before it justifies sound walls between the established 40-year-old neighborhood and this? Two, where are the police going to come to be able to, what kind of police, where would they come from that? And three, where's the fire station going to be that handles this property? Thank you.
That might be more of a Kristen question on the police and the fire.
So at this point, I don't believe we know what fire station would serve that potential development that will be established. And fire is one of our review partners on these projects, so they'll obviously have indications as far as fire requirements and the fire station that will serve it. Police, standardly would be the city of Longmont, but it's my understanding that in a lot of instances, closest responder is the one on the scene first, but that would be more of a question for the police than for the planning department. And the population density, we don't have a number set in regards to sound wall requirements, but that's something that can be required. And it has been required in different areas, I believe on like 119. So through Longmont proper. So it's definitely a consideration, but we don't have a number that ticks in that requirement. Thank you.
And sort of just a follow up actually to the other question, because there, Gay Street has an access on 66, and I don't know if this would necessarily, there's a little bit offside of our property, but I believe there probably would be some intention to connect Gay Street to our development as well. So there would be a bit of a safety valve for some of this traffic to go that way as well, I would think. But I mean, that's to be determined. But
Great. And I see, believe it's Philip. If you are there, you can feel free to ask a minute follow-up question as well. Go for it.
Yeah, doing some rough math on the dwelling units per acre. So first question is, are the dwelling units per acre the same for the two parcels? Because Kristen mentioned just the eastern parcel that is yet to be annexed. But, my math tells me we're talking about 3,000 dwelling units, and could be more. That's a pretty high density. The map you put up, the site plan, the preliminary site plan you put up shows connecting to the driveway that's on Lifebridge Church. Is it your intention to connect to that existing driveway on private property? That would give the Lifebridge traffic an additional way out, but it would also would require annexation of their property. Anyway, if you could touch on those, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. On the first one, I would say that math, you need to factor in a lot of things that are not going to be developed, which is the elementary school, the park, the roadways, the detention ponds. So like when you look at that, you're really looking at about 90 developable acres. So you're really looking at about 1,800, dwelling units. So, just want to bear that in mind, that there's a lot of things in here that are not developed that don't play into that equation. So, and then secondly, on Gay Street is a public road. It is not a driveway. So that is, unless I'm wrong on that, but I believe that is a public road, at least a portion that's off of their property, but I could be wrong on that one. Maybe that's Kristen, that.
I believe you're correct, Brian. And in regards to density counts, the reason I addressed the westerly property is that because that has been annexed into the city in 2007 and has a concept plan in place on it already. The easterly parcel is still in unincorporated Boulder County, so we'll be going through the annexation process, and with that, determine a concept plan, which in theory would closely mirror the westerly concept plan, but because that's not a proposal on the table yet, I don't have numbers that I can address regarding that.
Great. Well, thank you all. That is it for our question and comment period. I appreciate everybody that called in. Kristen, I'm going to pull up your slide to close it out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dallas. So thank you everybody for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it. It's great. It's a great first step to get the public involved in the process. On the screen, you'll see my contact information, my email address and phone number here at the city, and also Tasha Boulevards, who's the applicant representative. Do not hesitate to reach out to either of us with questions, concerns, comments, etc. And with that, I will say thank you and everybody have a great evening.
Thanks all. Have a good night.
Thank you.